So today we're going to talk about the Dometic CFH355IM. I assume IM stands for ice maker, and that's one of the reasons I got this version. I picked it up at REI, and usually REI has a pretty good sale that you can take 10% or 20% off anything in the store. And I wait for those times to get some of the big ticket items, especially on things that don't go on sale that often. So I had to order it and get it delivered, and I'm a little concerned about that because, as you know, packages get tossed around. And I will say I was pleasantly surprised. It was delivered, no issues. I've already opened it up and taken a look. Now, I wasn't really in the market for a refrigerated cooler at this time, but my wife had actually said she would consider camping if she could have a cold drink with ice. And I don't think she has ever gone camping, so I got to make sure the first time she goes that she actually truly enjoys it. This is probably one of the only cooler I see that can make ice and while still being a refrigerator. I definitely want the refrigeration part to keep things cold, but I don't want to use it as a freezer. So this is going to be a perfect test. So I'd like to actually do a series of tests just to see what this thing can do, kick the tires and see how fast it cools, when can it make ice. So I'm going to run some tests at different temperatures and then probably do a real life situation on having it as a refrigerator and seeing if it makes ice in a decent amount of time. On one of my last tests, I'll connect it to a Jackery 500 watt system to see if how long the battery will last. If I go out for 3-4 days, will it last that long, or am I going to need another power source or make sure the Jackery gets powered up?
The Dometic refrigerator is pretty self-explanatory. There are videos on the web that shows how to use it. However, there's a few points that when I set mine up I had a hard time figuring out. One is the password for the Wi-Fi and the actual smell of the ice cube. When setting up the Wi-Fi app, it will ask for a password, and I could not find a password anywhere. And I finally had to look on their website under FAQ, and they actually show that the password is 8 zeros. Also, if you use the Wi-Fi, it also takes over the normal Wi-Fi that your phone uses, which sometimes can be a pain transferring back and forth from the Dometic refrigerator Wi-Fi to your normal Wi-Fi that you use. I have not set up the Bluetooth, so I can't comment on that yet. I also wanted to take a look at the ice trays to see if they leak, and so if I'm on a bumping road, will they leak while I was trying to make ice. So if you can see, I have a few drips coming out, but it's not overly too bad. So I think as long as the road isn't too bumpy, that they should be okay. The other part I've noticed is the first time you make the ice cube, it's going to taste a lot like plastic. And so best thing to do is just soak the ice tray in some baking soda water, and then the next set of trays tasted perfect without any aftertaste.
Okay, we're going to do some time test on how fast the Dometic refrigerator cools down. The first test, I'm going to do it with the AC plug in. I'm going to set it for 20 degrees, and I'm going to see how long it takes to have the inside average about 20 degrees. I'm also going to leave the cold plate off on the ice maker. So it says it's 77 right now. I'll set the temperature. We'll set it at 20. Okay, it's been about 30 minutes. Let's check the temperature. And it says 25, and we're shooting for 20 degrees. So in the last 30 minutes, it went from, what, 77 degrees, 76 degrees to 25. So that looks pretty good. Now let's open it up and see what the temperature along the walls are here. Very top shows 49 degrees on the wall. Wow, look at that, 6 degrees. That's actually pretty impressive. 4 degrees here, 32 here. Over on what I would call the fruit basket, it's 53. So wide variation. So it would tell me that the cooling coils are on this back end. And let's see what's over on this side. 10 degrees, 10 degrees. Again, so the cooling coils are on the side. And that's hard to see with the reflection, 7 degrees. Okay, that's good. Time for the 1 hour check. Temperature says 23 degrees. So I would say this area here, or the main part of the refrigerator, it's essentially down to 20 degrees. Here I would probably be concerned if you're going to put anything frozen in. Okay, it's been about 90 minutes. Let's do another temperature check. And of course the area, it's 34, so it's still not frozen at this point. 17 against the wall. So eventually, if you just give it enough time, this area will cool down, but it may take longer. But in about 60 minutes, it basically got to the freezing temperature, or the set temperature of 20 degrees. And if you put it here, it would work just fine. I would just caution you putting anything on this side. Okay, this is test 2. We will go down to 20 degrees with the ice bar on. Just as an interesting note, I put a watt meter on there, and it shows with it off pulling 2.7, 2.9 watts. So I assume that's just so it can monitor the Wi-Fi. Compressor kicked on, it pulls about 50 watts. Okay, the time is 30 minutes and time to do a temperature check. It's down to 34 degrees. It's a few degrees higher than it was for our first test and consuming 60 watts. Let's see how cold it is. The top measures 58. The bottom measures 50 degrees. And of course the sides are also at 50 degrees. I thought they would be cooler than that. Side is 46. And this one's 23. So it seems this one's a lot cooler. And then let's check over. And it's 44 degrees, so might be a little cooler than it's been. So I'm actually a little surprised the temperature of some of these walls. So I guess the flow is being diverted, the coolant flow. Okay, this time I've lowered the temperature down to 5 degrees. This is probably more realistic if you're using this in freezer mode. and I want to see what the temperature is inside and freeze these 2 ice trays. So going back to what we normally do, we check the temperature. On the bottom it shows 0, and then on the ice plate it shows 15. So both of them should freeze, and let's see how long it takes to freeze these 2 trays. Okay, it's about the 1 hour time, and I have it set at 37 degrees. We're going to check to see the inside temperature. Let's see, it was at 43 when I started, and it says it's down to 34. And I had set it for, I believe, 38 degrees. Let's see how the power consumption off the Jackery. And it looks like it's already consumed 10% of the power. A little concerning, because that means I only have another 9 hours left. But let's see. One of the main reasons I got this is if it can make ice while in refrigeration mode. So I kind of moved it around so things have shifted just a bit. Let's see what the temperature is now saying. It is saying about 40 degrees, and let's see if it's making any ice. It is, looks, we got a few ice cubes here. That's actually pretty good news there. I'm gonna pop this out, see what the temperature of the ice plate, and it's actually -5. That's actually pretty cold. So it's actually doing its job as expected. A lot better than the other tests that I've ran. So I'm pretty happy with that. Let's see how the consumption goes as I continue to run the battery. Okay, it's 2 hours and it's another check. And on the Jackery, we have used 17% of our power. So this thing really consumes the battery. But let's see if it made ice. Open it up. Check the temperature. It's 41 degrees on the sides. It is 41. And over here, looks like we got some ice made. Good solid ice. And it shows -22. So this cold plate really gets cold, but I'm also concerned that it's consuming a lot of my power. I'll go ahead and close it up. Okay, it's 4.5 hours since I started this test. At 2.5 hours, I went ahead and put the ice maker off because it was just consuming too much power. But I wanted to see what the temperature. I left one of the set of ice cubes in there. I wanted to see if it's still cold enough to hold the ice a couple hours later. But I did notice a significant drop in power usage. I mean, right now it says it's using 51 watts with the compressor, but it was at 80% after 2.5 hours, and 2 hours later it only used 5%. The refrigerator ran for another 34 hours with the ice maker off. If you extrapolate the consumption, the fridge with the ice maker off will use about 500 watts of power in a little more than 40 hours. So for me, the Jackery 500 should last a little more than 40 hours running the refrigerators.
However, if you use the ice maker, it will use the 500 watts in about 10 hours. So what are the major learnings? Using the factory recommended settings of 5 degrees for the freezer mode and 37 degrees for the refrigerator mode, I assumed the temperature controller were optimized to these set points. I found, especially at the 37 degree set point, that the refrigerator used about 50 to 60 watts per hour with the ice maker and used about 10 to 12 watts per hour with the ice maker off. During my other tests running at, let's say, 20 degrees, you could definitely tell that the temperature was not as uniform, especially when looking at the cold plate. So for me, the normal mode would be in a refrigerator mode with the ice maker off. This would allow me to run the Jackery 500 for over 40 hours. The ice maker works great at the 37 degrees set point, and in about 2 hours I had solid ice. In the freezer mode, however, one should be mindful of what is put around the fruit area, also known as a cold plate, because that area does not get cold as the set point. So just be aware of what you put in that area. Overall, I can say I'm happy with my purchase. The CFX 55 is a little bulky, and when fully loaded would be too heavy for one person. And always pre-cool the fridge before you take it out, but if you can't, it only takes about 1 to 2 hours to get to temperature.